What's up? This is Oz from StuLiquor.com with the Mugs. What's going on, fellas? Why don't you introduce yourself and what instrument you play?
Tony Muggs, and I play the Fender Rhodes bass.
All right.
Danny Muggs, I'm the guitar player and singer.
Todd Muggs, and I play the drums.
Tagle.
The drums. So I wanted to ask you what genre of music you play and who are your major influences that you base your music off of?
We're a blues rock band. We like to take blues, like traditional blues of the late 50s and 60s, and do what they did with it in the British blues boom, like your Led Zeppelins, Humble Pie, Cactus, Rory Gallagher, Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. Those are our influences, like, you know, your Deep Purples, your Black Sabbaths, and, you know, even back to B.B. King and John Lee Hooker and, you know...
A boom, boom, boom?
Yep. Boom, 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 boom.
All right.
Yeah, that's the stuff we really dig, you know. We just like where blues got psychedelic and weird, and, you know, we just, you know, with good riffs. We're big fans of good riffs, and that's where we like to take the music.
Okay. So how long have you guys been a band as a three-piece?
10 plus years. Yeah, so far so good, right, Dan?
It's fantastic. Me and Tone had an ass-kicking argument on the way here about I'm all down on where the band's going, and Tone's all like, you know, Tony Blue Skies, you know, we're always on the up and up. But that's the great dichotomy that keeps this band together. You know, unfortunately, he's got to deal with my crabby butt. Because blues rock, you know, it's not a big genre. It's not something that, you know, people are going to run out to see unless you're like an established band like Government Mule or the Derek Trucks Band, the Allman Brothers. You know, those are bands that have, the Black Keys, the White Stripes, they've done really well. But, you know, I've pretty much named all 5 of the worldwide bands that are as successful as blues rock. So we, you know, we kind of know where we're at and we know what we're doing and we're enjoying it. But, you know, it's tough to make a living doing what we're doing, but we do it because we really love it.
You must know what you're doing because you just went to Spain for a 2-month tour, right?
You know, we love the Europeans. Man, they are fantastic. They love Detroit rock. They love blues rock. You know, it's interesting. In Europe, it's so dance music oriented that it's, you know, when an actual rock band comes over there, they're really excited about seeing, you know, bands play their own music and, you know, really get down, you know, because it's interesting. In Europe, a lot of the rock clubs we play, you play from like 9 to 11 o'clock. And at 11 o'clock, the club turns completely over to a dance club. So, you know, everyone just comes in, and all of a sudden it's just packed. All the rock kids leave, and all of a sudden all the dance kids come in. And it's from 11 in the morning, or 11 at night till 4 in the morning. It's just, you know, 5 hours at dance club. So, you know, the dance is the biggest thing.
I'm sure you guys stay for that dance.
Oh, we had to.
Actually, we do.
Yeah, we can boogie, man. We could totally boogie.
You can boogie? All right. So I wanted to get back to the fundamentals of the band, how you guys write your music, where it starts from, if it's a guitar riff, and who writes the lyrics primarily.
All right, well, I would like to pass this one over, but I probably should take this one.
Okay.
We start the songs off with a riff, I'm the primary riff writer, I suppose. And I never write lyrics first, you know, I write the lyrics as well. And on the first record, Tony helped me out with the lyrics because in the early days when we were in Fat Belly Brown, in the early days of the Mugs, Tony was the singer because I was scared to death to sing. I was afraid of, you know, just being a front man. I just wanted to be a, you know, a cool guitar player or whatnot. But after a while, I gained confidence and I started to want to write lyrics. So the best formula for the Mugs is I come in with a riff, I throw it at the boys, you know, and with Todd and Tony, we see if we like the riff. We have to like the riff first, you know. It's like throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing if it sticks. If they don't like the riff or we're not feeling it, or if Todd's not finding a drum beat for it, or if Tone's like, it's kind of boring, we don't go with it. More often than not, though, we've been very successful. You know, I try to just bring down the best stuff, and if it's working and we're all feeling a good groove on it, then I want to throw lyrics on it, and I'll take another month or two to try and find appropriate lyrics, and that's kind of how we write our tunes.
So when you do find the appropriate lyric, do you write them down, or are they just stuck in your head and you will remember them forever? Because I remember a quote from Ronnie Van Zant, like, the good lyrics are the ones you don't have to write down. So what's up?
That's a great quote, actually. I never heard that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. No, unfortunately, I was an English major in college, so I have notebooks and notebooks of lyrics crossed out. Ooh, that's a good lyric. You know, I'll take that and cross out, cross out, cross out. You know, I spitball on the page. And, you know, after 3 pages of spitballing lyrics and seeing, because I've written some written some bad lyrics. And these guys have never seen, thankfully. I only bring the best stuff. You know, even if I have one full stanza to bring to the guys, I'll sing that over and over until, you know, and then I just sit and do homework and write the remaining four. But I struggle with the lyrics. They're hard. Because I try to write weird, esoteric lyrics. I can't write, you know, I love you, you love me. You know, my stuff's about Aubrey Beardsley and 6 to Midnight, you know, Were Dogs and obscure German art movements.
So you guys got together before internet got together. So how did you guys form this band? Was it newspaper articles? Was it just friends?
Well, we were in Fat Belly Brown. Danny and I have always played ever since we were 20 years old, and you know, Fat Belly Brown was coming to its obvious end, and Danny said, you know, I want to be the lead singer and like kind of do a bluesy rock thing. So you know, I said, you know, I can play bass and sing harmonies, right? And so we looked for a drummer, and we found a drummer, and we started throwing ourselves at shows, and from there it just got better and better. Unfortunately, I had a small accident, which sidelined me for about 2 years, but I got back in the band, and ever since 2004, we've been coming out with albums, and it's been a slow burn for sure, but we're more popular now than we ever have been.
And you guys are still kicking ass as a tight band with the drums and the bass being just so tight, and the lead guitar just kicking ass. So
let's talk about Todd Glass for a second.
All right. So, as a drummer, were you always a blues rock drummer, or have you been a different style before, or is this just your primary drum style?
Yeah, I've always originally was like a John Bonham kind of Ringo Starr guy. But I've been a working musician in Detroit for like 15 years, so you have to play like all different kinds of styles of music. But this is like my main love from the beginning, really. So it's kind of cool to be able to do it with very talented guys.
Oh, don't start crying on us, buddy.
About the internet thing, Tony really has been the main like advertising guy for this band. I mean, he does hours a day.
He's our
on the
business
internet
manager. He does everything for us.
Yeah, and I mean, like, as far as he was on the ground floor of like all the like internet radio stuff.
Your Pandoras,
Yeah.
Before we even knew what that was, when MySpace was still MySpace, Tony's like, Facebook's the new thing. We're gonna get on that. Tony got us on everything before. You know, he just got us on the ground floor, and everything. Every piece of you know, success that we've had is, you know, honestly because of Tone's hard work.
Now it's like primarily internet. How have you adjusted to doing all internet?
Oh, geez. Well, that's the only place we exist, right? Except for like pockets of the Midwest and Europe, which is great. We're not complaining. But you know, it's just about getting out there, getting the word out, and setting up pages, and then you know, hopefully, you know, you're quite honestly, you know, I can say that, you know, I'm the guy, but if the songs aren't there in the first place, then you're peddling garbage. So Danny writes a great song, so it's a good marriage in that respect. So I don't know, you just throw yourself at it and, you know, work hard and see if it sticks. And you know, like I said, it's been a slow burn, but we're more, you know, we're the band that people envy a lot, and they say, well, you know, how come they're doing so well? It's hard work, you know, and it's hours on the computer and hours of networking, and you know, most of it fails, but you know, you just and I practice as well. God, what don't I do? So it's just a culmination of hard work and being lucky, you know, being there at the same time. But we were on this like show in 2007, this national TV show, and one of our fans actually gave us a pamphlet and said, "Fill this out. You guys you're going to be the next great American band." And so we filled it out, and you know, just for a lark. You know, we thought we'd never get on the show, and sure as heck, we're getting calls to audition for the show. So you never know. You just got to get out there and throw yourself at it and see if it works, you know?
I hear you, man. So you guys went over to Spain, and you said you had a crazy, like, tour when you were driving to a show maybe in Berlin. What was going on there?
Oh, geez. This was back in 2012. We've been lucky enough to tour Europe 4 times now.
It's impressive.
Yeah, thank you. In 2012, we were supporting a new record called Born Ugly, and we played this club in Berlin called White Trash, and it's this restaurant on the top floor, and on the bottom floor it's a club. So we played the restaurant portion, and so we killed it that night, but we didn't get our stuff off the stage fast enough. So, like Danny was saying, how it converts into a dance floor. So we were trapped for 6 hours. And it was the best thing ever, because we were just like, okay, we just got on our dancing shoes and partied the night away. It was pretty memorable.
Did you miss the next show?
No, we didn't, but we had to drive
9 hours.
yeah, at least 9 hours from Berlin to Switzerland to play cafe for 45 minutes. It was pretty stupid, but but when you're on the road, when you're on the road, you just roll with the punches.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I wanted to switch over and talk about the new vinyl, Full Tilt, and how would you talk? It's a fully live album, right? All right, why don't you give a little word about that?
Yeah, well, I work at a bar called the Caju Cafe in Detroit, Michigan, and I'm a bartender up there. And the Mugs have been doing shows there for the last 10 years. It's a beautiful sounding room. It's like warm. It's an old building. It's been there for like 100 years. It's got carpet and wood, and one day I had a revelation like 2 years ago. Like, this would be a great place to, one, have a studio in, and two, to record a live record. So when it came around in Europe, a lot of people were telling us, we love your studio records, but if you guys made a live record, that'd be fantastic. You're so much more animated, and there's so much more happening when you play live. So, the inevitable happened, like, Tone, Todd, let's do a live record. Let's do it at the Caju Cafe. Make it nice and warm, make it heavy. Jim Kissling from the Tempermill Studios, he came in and recorded it, and he's an amazing engineer. We did our second record, On With The Show with Jim, and we had a magical night. We sold 200 tickets. The Caju has a capacity of 130. It's a small Belgian restaurant, but we removed all the tables. We sold 200 tickets, and and they sold out very quickly. And so all the people, it was just standing room only, and we went in there, warts and all. We recorded every song that we knew to play, and I know even a couple times we had to like stop and start over. It's like, oh, I messed that up, or I messed that lyric up, and on the live recording you never.
People were digging it.
Oh yeah, totally. And I even said, like, ooh, I gave the wrong lyric on that one. Yeah, I just like start back up again for this one. But 90% of it was completely authentic and perfect, where the crowd was with us, and I can't believe how great it came out. I was nervous. We were all nervous how a live recording was how it was gonna come across.
Most people do a live record and they do like 3 nights or something. We just did it one night. We didn't have any other. Yeah. So I think we redid like 2 or 3 whole songs or something like that. But other than that,
yeah, that night I think we only did 2 songs. That we did 2 sets. We did 2 1 hour and 15-minute sets, and so if we felt good about the first set, there's a couple of songs that we didn't feel good about, so we did them in the second set as well.
Oh, okay.
And
this was only supposed to be a single record. We only wanted to just get like one single record, but there was so much stuff we had to keep. I'm like, Tone, what do? We can't. What do we keep? Well, then we just all right, double record. Oh, Humble Pie live at the Fillmore. Yeah. We're just like, let's just go stupid with this and release everything. So we released everything we played that night.
Well, it really turned out great, man.
Thank you.
And when I look up the Mugs on, like, say, Spotify, I'm just scrolling just through all the stuff you've ever done. How many songs total do you think you've recorded and have put out there that are out there, on the internet?
Good question. I don't know. I would say 50 or 60.
11 on the first one, 11 on the second one. That's 22. 13 on the third one. It's 35, and then two singles, so 37 in totality. And then there's the live. So. And lap on another 22. Well, you got yourself a discography, sir.
All right. So I wanted to ask you, what was the greatest moment in the entire 10+ years you've been a band at a live show? Like, just so much.
Let Todd handle that one.
Or a funny story or whatever.
my favorite. I've only been in the band since 2009, but my favorite was the last night of the tour. We were in Italy. And Danny jumped out. We'd never played Italy before we headlined this festival, and it was off the hook. But Danny jumps down off the stage. He's like rocking, and like the Italians picked him up and did the crowd surf thing. But it's not like he jumped in there. They like lifted him up, passed him around, and then set him down really nice. Like
They did, very
it was really like
Wow, he was soloing.
it was great. That was my favorite.
Oh, that's a good one, actually. One of my favorites is a band called El Dorado. They're Spanish friends of ours. They're an amazing, amazing band. And one night, the crazy drummer of El Dorado woke us up, and apparently he wanted to get naked and go pound on the rest of the band members' doors. And I don't know what he was going to do, but he's like, we're going to go in their room, and then we're going to do things, but make sure you're filming it. So me and Todd are walking down the hall and filming it. And unfortunately, the other bands knew that not to let Javi in. And I kept begging Javi, like, all right, Tony's already asleep in his bed. Like, let's go do Javi, Tone. Or let's go do Tone, Javi. You know, come on, let's get in there. Let's do whatever you're going to do. He's like walking around naked. He's like, I can't. It's Tony. I'm like, why? You're going to do whatever you're going to do to anybody else. You're not going to get Tone? He's like, no, I cannot. We have him on film just like cowering like a little kid, like, oh, come on. I don't know if he's going to put his ass in his face or he's going to... But he never did it, but it's a memorable night for me. Just there was a couple of bands getting stupid, and we never got to see what Javi was going to do to the other bands. But
Maybe
my favorite nights.
Maybe someday.
One of my favorite nights was in 2006, October 2006. We had the pleasure to open up for Robin Trower at the Roloc Music Theater. And that was we had a 45-minute set. The crowd was so responsive, and they actually gave us a standing ovation.
Wow.
And that was when I knew that the Mugs could hang with the rest of the big dogs. Yeah. And that was a reaffirming moment for the band. And Todd just picked up right where Matt left off. So that's one of my favorite feel-good moments.
Okay. I wanted to ask you a sport question because I know you guys are from the D, and you love the Tigers, you love the Red Wings. Talk about them.
Red Wings are my jam. I love the Tigers, I love the Lions, but the Red Wings are my effing jam.
How far do you think they get this season?
They're going to get to the playoffs. San Jose's tough, and they just moved to another division, so it's going to be tough by them. In fact, the funny thing was when we were in Europe, the Wings were in the Stanley Cup Finals against Chicago. Todd was able to pull up the Red Wings games on his iPhone at 4 in the morning. So we're listening to live feeds at 4 in the morning. We're staring at a phone on a bed, listening to it, and it was a disaster. We were up 3-1 in that series, and sorry, you got me on a Red Wings rant, and that was a disaster. I'm glad I wasn't in Detroit for that because I'm still upset about it. But it's a new season. We still got great players, and that's my jam. But I'll be there for the Lions and Cowboys tomorrow. I hate the Cowboys.
Oh, God. So are you a bigger Red Wings or Detroit?
More about Tigers and Lions. I love all sports, but as a bummer to have Jim Leland go. I know he was a lot of people didn't like him, but he only got us to the World Series 2 times in 8 years in his tenure here in Detroit.
Before that, we don't even want to talk about what the Tigers were. So
Exactly. 12 years of obsolescence, and then he comes in 8 years for playoff, and that's not good enough. Shame on you, Detroit.
Our fans are tough, man. Our fans are too tough.
Oh, I hear you.
We're homers, man. We want to see them succeed. We never get on the negative side as far as sports go. Yeah, about sports, we're always cheering. We're always, NBA. You can have the NBA. We're done with that.
Spartans or Wolverines?
Boom. I'm Spartan. I went to
Spartans.
Spartans.
Yeah, that's 3 for 3 for the Spartans. All right, I wanted to talk about, now getting back from Spain, I want to talk about the Michigan scene, where you're from. What do you think the music scene's doing right now? Where do you think it's going to be in 5 years? What do you think Stu Licker's doing for the scene and what we're trying to do for them?
I dig what you cats are doing, actually. It's been very interesting as far as the scene has been. The last 10 years, ever since the White Stripes became huge, things have happened interestingly where Detroit was the hot spot, and then when it's not the hot spot anymore, a lot of people lose interest in the bands that are still around and still being fantastic and putting out great music. And then there's all these young kids coming up who weren't fortunate enough. They were like 12 years old 10 years ago, to appreciate, like, you know, the White Stripes and the Detroit Cobras, the Electric Six, and now they're the 22 and 23-year-old kids who are forming their own scene. So I'm hoping that, you know, music is cyclical, and I'm hoping it, you know, in the next couple of years that we boost another scene happening, because all the bands are here and they're all fantastic. It's just, you know, people just need to support them more than they are right now. You know, just because it's not nationally known for the time being, the bands are still fantastic and we're still making great music.
I want to talk for just a second about our friends in the Dirty Americans. Can we bring them back?
Are they?
Can we bring them back? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with them. Yeah.
Oh, they're still here, but they're not playing.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Egypt.
yeah, is that what they're doing? Recording at the Pyramids of Giza.
Yeah, right.
You know, I love that band. Those cats are fantastic. We've done a few shows with those guys. You know, I tell you what, though, it's so tough on this scene, and I know their situation is probably a lot like ours. You know, where you get in relationships, and I think one of the guys in the band had kids and stuff, and that's why our first drummer couldn't play with us anymore. He had a couple of kids, and you know, the older you get, the tougher it is to keep a band together. It's just a labor of love. You know, you do it because you love to do it, but it becomes, the older you get, it becomes harder and harder to play. We've seen not only the Dirty Americans, there's so many bands that are falling by the wayside. Amazing bands. They're just like, all right, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But you know, I dig what you're doing, and you're, you know, taking interest in bands, and you know, hopefully this can get out, and you know, the Mugs, we're giving it the good college try. We're doing the best we can before I, you know, have to apply for AARP.
What do you mean apply?
I'm already eligible. I'm already getting envelopes in the mail.
Dude, that's a total angle. We can play later.
You can play old retirement homes, man.
You know, those walk-in bathtubs are looking better and better. I see on the Price is Right.
The little stools in the showers.
I never realized I'd be that guy, but all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I want a walk-in bathtub.
No, man, I've seen you guys live, and there is no chance that's going to happen in the next 20 to 30
No,
years.
it's not. We're just joking.
You're going to be like the Rolling Stones.
You know, they're
Without the
just, see,
money.
that's great. Without the fame, the aplomb, and the money, exactly.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Good interview.
This is Oz from Stu Liquor Music for you with the Mugs, and we'll see you later.